redoing the cam belt on this car. This is a Nissan Np200. Okay, it is the 1600 16 valve version. Okay, you do get a 8 valve version, but this is a 1600, okay, 16 valve. It uses a similar engine to the Renault Sanderos and so on. Okay, so we're going to be doing the cam belt. As you can see, there's not a lot of space here, but I mean, you know, it has to be done. So we're going to be taking off you know, this little cover here, you know, just a little air box which you take out of the way so that we can access the back of the cam, because we've got a cam locking tool once we've timed the motor up properly before we loosen off the old belt. And then we have to take this mounting out of the way, the engine mounting. Then we have to support the engine with a jack. Okay, so best to take off the wheel, okay, the driver's side wheel, take away any covers that is going to restrict you from getting to the crankshaft pulley. Okay, and so the first thing that I would do is to basically just loosen off the crankshaft pulley, your bolt, you know, we just loosen it off. And then, you know, there is a special tools that we need for this car to lock up the crankshaft to top dead center and to lock the cams in place. Okay, so I'm going to show you the whole procedure as much as what I can. But the first thing we'll do is we're going to loosen up the crankshaft pulley bolt. Nice 18 socket, you know, with the breaker bar over there. Then we'll go against the gearbox here. You'll see I've got the screwdriver in here because the ring gear teeth are basically exposed there, you know. So I've got the screwdriver stuck in there, alright, and with the screwdriver stuck in there, it's basically going to stop the engine from rotating. So with that screwdriver in the back by the ring gear there, okay, we'll just loosen up this bolt here. It's pretty tight, but the normal breaker bar should just be sufficient to loosen it up. Okay, so there we are. We have it loose until we can turn it by hand. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a size 16 spanner, because here is an adjuster for the auxiliary belt. We're going to be taking that auxiliary belt off. There's a size 16 over there. Before you do this, try and memorize the belt routing. Okay, if you can't, if you think you're not going to remember it, then just take a photo of it. As we turn that adjuster pulley clockwise, you will see how the belt basically gets tensioned. Okay, so we take the belt off, we do the water pump as well. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, I'm going to just be taking the pulley out of the way. Okay, we still have to turn the crank to lock up, you know, to lock it up on top dead center. But we can do that without having the pulley on. We can just take the pulley out of the way. I normally just take an old bolt and nut, and I put it on there to space up. And then I'll turn the pulley bolt back on like that, so that we can actually turn the crankshaft. Okay, so don't forget, you have to take out your screwdriver in the back here, okay, so that the engine can actually turn freely. Okay, I have to drain the water, okay, because we're going to be doing the water pump as well. And I'll put the clamp back, and then we can go on to the next stage. Okay. But I'll try my best. So we need to loosen up the screw here. we'll just turn it out. I'll show you what it looks like once it's out. The blanking plug, and DA1030. That's the number of the kit, the part number of the kit there. Basically, we have a crank locking pin. Okay, we've just taken that grub screw out now. Not that grub screw. As I said, it's a E14 Torx. Okay, there we are, an E14 Torx. Okay, so we've got that out. So now, to replace that, we basically have this pin. Okay, so we're going to have to go and turn this pin in, and then turn the crankshaft up against the pin to lock it on top dead center. We'll turn that unit in, okay, as far as we can, by hand. Okay, turn it till it's up against, like that. We can't turn it any more than that. We'll go to the crank pulley, we'll turn clockwise until the engine basically locks up. And you can feel the engine has basically locked up there. Okay, we can't turn it anymore. Okay, so with the 18 spanner, we'll turn back a little first, and then we'll turn until she goes against the crank lock. You can hear it knocking. You hear that? Okay, so that's top dead center. Okay, so now we got to line up. We got to make sure that the camshafts line up. Okay, so we're going to go to the top of the motor now. We basically have this airbox, which basically just pulls off. Okay, here's a little rubber elastic band type thing. You take it out of the way. So I'll just basically take a screwdriver, okay, and basically knock. We're going to damage this because we're going to be putting new ones. New ones come with a kit, okay, with a timing kit. So we have to just remove that like that, right? We'll be taking those two covers out of the way. You know, in the cam, okay, you see the slot. We go into both of those slots, line up nicely, okay, those cams in position. Okay, so there's a slot there and a slot there, and that tool is holding it in position. Now we can strip everything down and remove the cam belt, you know, so that when we put a new one on, we know the engine is timed properly, because we've got the crank locked and we've got the cams locked. Okay, the jack in under the engine, okay, normally under the sump, and just to hold the engine in position. So I'll be using a size 16 socket, okay, with a long extension and a breaker bolt, and I'll just loosen off 1, 2, 3 on the engine side, and then another 3 on the body side. Okay, and we take this whole rack out of the way, and as you can see, we do have some air pipes, vacuum hoses here, okay, that are basically in the way, which we need to take out of the way. So we'll just basically squeeze the 2 tabs like that, and just pull that pipe off there, unclip the pipes from the brackets that are holding them in position. There's also a bit of wiring here. Okay, so we'll just get that out of the way. Right, we'll tuck it nicely out of the way. Just be careful with these pipes, you know, they're all molded pipe, and if they break, it's a bit of a story. It's easy with my power tool. It's 1 bolt, that's 2 bolts, 3 bolts on the engine side. Now we can just lift this whole unit off out of the way, like that. So now we've got the bracket off, so we have to take the top cover. Okay, we got to take this top cover off. We jack the engine up, okay, so that we can access those bolts. Top bolt loose here. So there's one bolt. That's what it looks like, okay, with the 13 head. A size 8 for me. Oh, a size 8 head. So nobody's changed anything. It's just difficult. So now we'll just take that cover off like that. Cover comes down. Now we're basically exposing the cam belt and the water pump over there. Okay, the cam belt and the tensioner. And let's get the top cover off. Now we need to jack this engine back up again. Just get clear there. So, there we go. Top cover comes off. They marked it with the picks. Okay, so that means that we got everything right. Size 13. And then we've got a idler pulley, which we need to take off. And then we need to take out the water pump as well. Tensioner should just come off with a size 13 spanner there. Enough. You can see the tensioner moving there now. Get that nut out of the way completely. There we go. Tensioner off. So we can just basically peel the belt off. Off down at the bottom. Just pull off the crank gear there. Okay, so there we have the belt. So we're using a size T50 Torx bit, okay, to get the idler pulley. Okay, we'll just turn that loose and out of the way because we got a new idler pulley in the kit. Alright, the idler pulley does have a spacer on the back as well. Okay, and I think we might get a new one in the kit as well. We'll take a look at the kit now. And then I'm going to now be taking off that water pump. So, I've got the pump off. Okay, that's the water pump of the car. 8 bolts holding it. Okay, one is a slightly bigger one. Okay, so these are the bolts here. Okay, you can see that that's 8mm and the rest of them are all 6mm. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 6mm and we've got 1 8mm. Okay, here's a tip here. Okay, when you put on your tensioner has a little protrusion at the back here. Okay, that must go into the slot over here. Okay, you've got to make sure that that protrusion goes into the slot there. Okay, so that it can't move about. You understand? And then you tighten it down with a nut over there. Okay, remember that? Okay, so we have our kit, timing belt kit here. It's a Bosch. Okay, the number, alright, 1987946702. Alright, Bosch kit for this Nissan Np200 or Nissan's what do they call it, a Renault Sandero. I get confused myself. In the kit you will get the belt, you will get the guide pulley, okay, you will get the new tensioner, right? And you will get a couple of other things. You will also get in here, we're getting the two caps, okay, to seal off at the back of the head. Alright, that's brand new there. And then they give you that, you know, that spacer, as I told you there, for this unit. Alright, that spacer with a bolt goes in like that. And then they give you a brand new bolt for the front crankshaft pulley. Okay, that comes in the Mam Belt kit over there. And then we have a new water pump. Now there is a difference in water pumps apparently. This is the more expensive one because it has what they call an evaporator here. Okay, it's got a big flange. Okay, as opposed to a smaller flange with some of the other pumps. Okay, so that's the new pump, and as you know, the new tensioner comes on there. The new tensioner fits here. A very important note, if I haven't mentioned it before, you see this protrusion here where my finger is tapping on. That protrusion must go into that slot when you fit your your tensioner. Okay, that mustn't move around. That must lock it. That is the reason, is to lock the tensioner so that you can put the proper tension on the tensioner. Alright, the gear, there's a new gasket, okay, which we will be using with a new water pump. So the first thing we'll do is put the water pump on. Okay, so I'm about to fit that water pump quickly. Okay, the thing to remember is that if you look here, you will see there are two dowels. Okay, there are two dowel holes in the pump, so make sure that dowel hole basically line up. Okay, so we're going to put the pump in. Going to make sure that the dowel holes line up, and when they line up nicely, you'll find that the pump will go flush, you know, against the engine. And then we'll just go and we'll put in the bolts as we get them out. Okay, so what I have done, I've just basically cleaned all the bolts. Okay, I've just cleaned all the bolts and made them look nice. Made sure the threads weren't clogged. Okay, so we've got seven with 8 heads and one with a 10 head. Okay, the one with a 10 head I just put in there now. So we'll just put all these bolts in. Some of them are in precarious positions, some of them are very easy to get to. Okay, so just do the best that you can to put the bolts in. Alright, I'm going to go ahead with this. It's pointless filming, it's going to be boring footage. I'm going to go ahead and get it done, tighten it all up, and when I'm done I'll get back to you. Okay, just another thing to show you guys. When you do tension up the belt, okay, that pointer should be in this position, in the middle of that notch. That pointer should go into the middle of that notch. This is what it will look like. Okay, this you will achieve by using that size 5 Allen key, okay, which you will use in here when you do the adjustment. Remember, now the belt will be running against here, and you will basically, when you do that, you can see how the unit's going to move off the center. Okay, so just remember that picture there. Okay, that is what it's supposed to look like. Okay, when the tensioner is tensioned at its right tension. Okay, I'll try and film it on the car as well, but I just want you to have an idea off the car. Okay, that's what it should look like. Right, and you'll know the tensioner is tensioned properly. So let's go and fit the tensioner. Okay, so remember now that little protrusion there must go into the slot, okay, of the water pump. Okay, in that slot. Remember, I showed you guys earlier. So now we'll take the size 13 head nut and we put it, tighten up the tension over there. Okay, I'm turning it on by hand. Remember, we're using a size 50 Torx. Okay, make sure that you've got your spacer, because without the spacer, let's take the spacer out and then you'll see what will happen. Okay, without the spacer, she's going to be right up against, and she's not going to be able to turn. You're going to be, basically, you'll be choking the guide pulley off. Okay, so it's got to have the spacer. We've got to put the spacer in. Okay, we'll tighten up the bolt. They did supply us even with a new bolt. We'll just tighten up. Make sure that you tighten up everything properly. Okay, we're going to now tighten up that guide pulley. Make sure that it goes nice and tight. Alright. Yeah, so now the guide pulley is on. Make sure it turns nicely. Make sure that your pump turns nicely. Make sure that your tensioner turns nicely. So when we put the belt on, we start by the crankshaft. Okay, we feed it. We make it tight around here, okay, around the tensioner side. The tensioner side must have the slack on it, so that when we adjust it, it will take up the slack. I normally put the right way up, okay, when I put the belt. So, let's get the bottom on. We have our crank locks on, okay. So now we're feeding the belt in, and as I say, we are trying to take up a lot of the space over here. We're taking up the, the tension on this side. Okay, the side that doesn't have the tensioner. A tooth here still. Okay, so I've got the belt on. Okay, as I say, feed it from the right hand side first. Take up all the play and let the play be on the tensioner side. If you look at the tensioner, I'm going to try and take you as close as I can. You look at the tensioner and you can see where the pointer is. Okay, set some light there. You can basically see, let's see. You see where the tensioner is? The tensioner and the pointer is in the middle, of the groove there. Okay, so that is the proper tension for this. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to loosen up everything now. Okay, we're going to take off the cam lock and the crank lock. Then we're going to turn the crankshaft 2 revolutions, okay, 2 360s. Remember that with 2 360s of the crankshaft, the camshaft only turns 1 360. Okay, so let's go and get the tools off there. So we'll take the cam locking tool out. Okay, that should just pull out like that. An eye on those cams. Okay, I'm going to now take the crank lock out, then I'm going to turn 2 360s on the crankshaft. Right, so here we go. Now the best test to do is we got to make sure that this tool goes in. Okay, but the tool is in, the tool has gone in properly again, so that means that our engine is timed correctly. Okay, so our white marks, before we stripped it, we were looking at those white marks, and they are definitely in position. Alright, so that's basically how you do the cam belt here. Alright, so all I need to do now, I need to put on the bottom cover, I need to put the top cover on, I need to put the engine mounting on, and then I need to lock up the crank pulley bolt again. Okay, and we use a screwdriver at the back in there by the gearbox, alright, by the ring gear to lock it. Alright, so let me go ahead and do that, and I'll get back to you when I'm done with that. Right, so these new units, okay, I just put a bit of silicone on the outside. Alright, and then we put it in by hand, even. That's what I did now. Okay, you push it in by hand. Put a little bit of sealant, around the. So pushing it in by hand is a better bet, because then you've got a better feel for it. You see, push it a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, until it goes nice and flush and even. Okay, it's the main thing. Right, so we want that to seal off nicely. Same goes for this one here. Okay, we want it flush. So we don't want to push it in too deep. We'll just push it flush against the edges. Like that. And that'll seal nicely. Okay, so we've got that in nicely. We just give it a wipe. We wipe off all the excess there. This airbox just basically trips in. Airbox just trips in there. Right. Sometimes you got to bleed these systems out. We just got to see if we've got a bleeding nipple. Yeah. You see down here? This is a bleeding nipple over there. Where my finger is. Okay, it's almost like a little screw here, a little cap. We just have to screw that off, you know, so that we get all the air out. But let's just get enough liquid into the system first. Bolts, antifreeze and summer coolant. I'm putting in 2 liters. The system. Okay, so I mean this Halls antifreeze comes in different colors. So, you know, that choice is up to you. So that's 2 liters going in. Okay, let's take that valve off. I've got that valve, that little cap off there now. Sometimes you just have to give it some time, okay, because gravity will sort of push down on the liquid here. You might have to even run this car. Okay. Right, let's start up. Yeah, it's sounding good. Okay. There was a whine on this engine, and I know what it means. I know now what it means. It is the aircon pump that is basically whining. Whilst it's running here, let's see if you bleed out here. Let's take a little step off here. That's what we want. We want it to come out until it's just pure water. Like that. Okay. I'm going to give it a break. I will circulate. Alright, let's take a step off again. Let's see. It's a good idea just to get your thing working here. Yeah, we'll get the heater working so the water circulates through the internal radiator here. Okay, let's recap. Okay, we got the airbox on. We did do the 2 new seals at the back there. Okay, we've got air pipes on. Okay, we've got the mountings on. Nice, everything is nice and tight. Okay, we've got all the nuts and the bolts in place. Alright, that's where we put the locking line. And then of course we've tightened up our crank pulley, you know, with a new crank bolt. Okay, and how we did that? We used screwdriver. We put the screwdriver into that gap between the gearbox and the engine there, and that basically locked the engine, okay, via the ring there. Okay, we got the fan belt on, and we played out the cooling system. Just because of the space here, it's not one of the easiest ones that I do, but it's definitely doable.